Hello and welcome to Omen Exitio, Hunger. And I have no idea whether I pronounced that correctly, but I'm probably assuming I didn't. Anyway, if you would like to check out the game, there is a link in the description. This is set in 1927, and it is a Lovecraftian experience, and it's inspired by true events. It is a work of fiction, however, so just bear that in mind. Otherwise, this is very much a detective story, and you are tasked with, you guessed it, solving the mystery. Let's start a new game. New York, 12th of February, 1927. Prologue: The Case of the Stolen Cars. The overcast afternoon sky mirrors the hue of cigarette smoke, evoking a sweet craving for nicotine sharp enough to make your throat prickle. In the foreground, the silhouette of a weathered, seemingly ancient wooden house looms before the windshield, completing the cheerful little picture of a dismal punch clock day. Nothing out of the ordinary for Riker Avenue, a place forgotten by God, lined with bare trees and overrun with wild animals. The people who live here usually hide their shady business, and the scrapyard you're investigating is no exception. The editor-in-chief is unusually interested in this stolen car racket. Unlike you. You carefully park your car at a discreet distance from the weathered house. According to your source in the police department, there shouldn't be anyone there until Monday, but you can never be too careful. You reach to your right to grab the folder containing your investigation notes, but your hand slips on the slick cardboard surface, sending its entire contents spilling under the seat. You curse your clumsiness with a string of worn-out expletives, and as you collect the fallen papers from the floor mat, you come across a small black booklet that had been buried among the pages of solved cases. It's a diary that you had kept until just a few months ago, and that you had filled with disjointed thoughts and philosophical contemplations inspired by a few too many drinks. An unsuccessful project, considering the undignified end you consigned it to, abandoned and buried under the seat, as if it had never existed. Without thinking about it, you start flipping through the notebook, your gaze far off, letting the memories of the last few years blur your vision. Saturday, 15th of May, 1920. The first image you see is that of a baby in swaddling clothes, cradled tenderly by a woman in bed. Your heart constricts at the memory, imprinted on your mind as if you had it right before your eyes. The most beautiful day of your life, or rather, of your lives. You and Margaret, who not long before had been worrying about the complications that the midwife feared during the pregnancy, could finally hold the fruit of your love in your arms. Young and unmarried, lacking the support of either of your parents, you decided to keep the child, which to you now seemed like the most beautiful, meaningful thing in the entire universe. And because the first daisies were sprouting outside, you decided to call her Daisy. Friday, 12th of May, 1922. The sketch depicts the small door of the apartment just below the one you once shared with Margaret, tucked away in a forgotten alley near the old cemetery in Boston. You used to call it your workshop. Painting was your passion, but it hardly filled your coffers. Your few earnings came from occasional clients and the odd jobs that Margaret would take on. One day, a distinguished-looking gentleman showed up at your doorstep. You'd assumed he was lost, but he turned out to be an art critic from New York. His name was Edward Thurber. He was captivated by your precise and realistic portrayal of the nature of things infused with the artist's feeling. So he invited you to join the Boston Art Club. We can now choose between exhibiting paintings of landscapes or exhibiting paintings of people. I think it is a little bit more interesting to exhibit paintings of people, but dependent on the artist. Constable comes to mind a little bit here, but it very much dependent on the landscape and who's doing it. Landscapes can be very captivating as well. We're going to go for people though. Tuesday, 30th of May, 1922. A lot of people were able to see your paintings in this small exhibition. You were excited and had trouble speaking, but your new friend, a glass of amber bourbon in his hand, stepped in to curate your work for you. You smile as you recall how much some of the visitors appreciated your work. Elliot Thurber, the younger brother of your benefactor, once described them as an excellent escape from the cold, mechanical nature of photography, which so often fails to capture the true personality of its subjects, except perhaps in the case of Heine's social critiques. After the event, you began to get some commissions, and a steady stream of clients meant your family could live comfortably for a few years. Tuesday, 24th of June, 1924. The sketch on the tear-stained wavy paper depicts the three of you in a moment of fleeting happiness, a moment that was unceremoniously snatched away by the capricious hand of fate. No one knows exactly why it happened. The doctor said he had warned you of the possibility, but as parents, you had preferred to ignore it. No, actually, it was just you who chose to look away. You had vehemently refused to confront the prospect of losing Daisy, and you had behaved as if nothing was wrong. Did your willful ignorance make things worse? You never let her want for anything, and she always seemed so blissful. Margaret didn't shed a single tear at the funeral, remaining impassive as she stood before the tiny coffin being lowered into the ground, observed by a handful of mourners. You held her close, but she showed no reaction. That was the moment you foresaw the end of everything. Sunday, 2nd of November, 1924. In the following months, Margaret spiraled into the abyss of melancholy, her faith taking a macabre turn as she recited the rosary for Daisy's soul, her voice echoing through your home and into your study. Your marital bond never recovered, and with each passing day, you drifted further apart. You catch sight of a small wooden rosary peering out from among the pages. Your eyes still see the darkness of the bedroom. Your nostrils recall the acrid smell that had assailed you upon entering, and your ears echo with an anguished scream, as if your throat were releasing it once again. When you realize that your gun, an aging relic from your military service, was absent from the desk drawer, it was already too late. She had decided to join your little girl. Meanwhile, you remained there, weeping for both of them. Monday, 24th of November, 1924. One of the sketches portrays a portly, elderly man with a bushy beard, handing you a basket containing a one-eyed black cat. You had just settled into your apartment in New York. He lived next door, but was relocating to a place where he could no longer accommodate his feline companion. He asked if you would be willing to take care of him. telling you the cat would quickly bond with anyone who fed him. You were uncertain how much time your new career as a journalist would demand, courtesy of Thurber. You didn't know how long you'd stay. Yet, faced with that endearing little face, you gave in. And so, following the man's suggestion, you gave your unexpected new friend a name. And so we can choose. We can choose between Menes, like the first pharaoh who unified Egypt, Pluto, like the god of the dead in classical mythology, or Salem, like the city of witches your family hails from. And I think we're probably gonna go with Salem. Saturday, 11th of July, 1925. The portrait of Colin is in front of you. He was the first friend you made in New York. At the time, you were conducting research for an article on a group of smugglers who were supposed to sell a batch of gin to be sent to Chicago. You knew the police were set to intervene, and you went to the designated spot, hiding and ready to observe the situation. But when the authorities arrived, chaos erupted. One of the criminals unleashed a hail of machine gun fire, forcing the police to withdraw while his partners secured the cargo. An officer lay wounded on the ground, struck by a bullet, the aggressor holding him at gunpoint, ordering his colleagues not to play any tricks. But you were right there, ready to act. Okay, and we have the choice between making some noise to draw some attention or attacking the aggressor and throwing him to the ground. And the question is, I think we'll probably make some noise. What about that? You slammed your fist against the metal container you'd taken cover behind. Startled by the noise, the gunman turned and opened fire in your direction. In the chaos, one of the bullets found your leg. More shots rang out in the distance, but the pain even came fast and blinding, and you lost consciousness. When you came to, you found yourself in a hospital bed, and the man you'd risked your life for was in the one next to you. He introduced himself as Detective Colin Wright, and you greeted him with a warm smile and introduced yourself. During the days of recovery, the two of you talked a lot, and you found something rare in the sprawl of the city: a real friend. But in the end, the article went to someone else. You close both your eyes and the journal, dispelling the past with a deep sigh. Placing the journal back in its designated spot, you focus on the real reason for your visit to Riker Avenue. Gazing out the window at the relentless frigid drizzle drenching the ground, you exhale in frustration, regretting having forgotten an umbrella. And yet the weather isn't all that different from Boston's. You should be used to it by now. You return your attention to the papers in your folder, double-checking your location and taking a moment to review anything that might prove useful. John Mahoney is a textbook lowlife, a man who modifies stolen cars and then sells them to the highest bidder. A dull, moderately dangerous story, the worst combination. Stepping out of the car, you find yourself in a spectral expanse strewn with the remains of mangled vehicles. The forest yields to a peculiar open-air junkyard, in the center of which stands a big house, reigning as the unrivaled monarch of all the wreckage. Its stark contrast against the desolate sky is almost jarring to the eye, while the wind carries the melancholic creaking of decaying timber, a poignant symphony that appears to challenge both the weather and the relentless march of time. Very picturesque. You offer the remark with a touch of sarcasm, almost under your breath, a defense against the urge to light up a cigarette and quell your restlessness. In contrast to the bustling metropolis of Manhattan, This place feels utterly alien. It seems a world away from civilization, yet you know that a relatively short walk could take you to the coast, with its harbors and ships. As you scour the area, you cross the scrapyard and come to one side of the house. Your vigilant eyes sweep from side to side, hoping to uncover something that could bring your investigation closer to its end. And now we have to find some evidence. As you can see right here, it says, find the evidence to solve the stolen car case. What the fuck? What's a doll doing impaled on a branch? I don't think Mahoney had any kids. Alright, yeah, so here we go. We're gonna obviously have a look-see around here, and we're gonna see what's going on. As you can see, there is literally a doll that was impaled, literally impaled on that tree. And we obviously have locations here. We have some characters, as you can see. There's Margaret. We even have a picture of her. We're going to be able to see all of the characters as well. We're probably going to have a look at those right now. My partner, whom I loved so much that I gave up all family ties to stay with her. I somehow survived Daisy's disappearance, but she did not. Since then, it's as if my heart has closed itself off, and although I have had a few flings since I came to New York, no woman has ever been able to replace her. Probably because it's not possible. Then, of course, we have Daisy, the joy of my life, whom I loved more than anything in the world, a sweet, energetic, and always cheerful child, although her health was never perfect. Her untimely death cast a shadow over my life that still lingers today, and from which I have no way of escaping. And then we have John Mahoney, a nasty piece of work who runs a stolen car racket between Queens and the Bronx. He started out helping bigger criminals than himself, but then managed to strike out on his own, and now the police are hot on his trail to nail him. He's got people helping him with his dirty work, and he's generally pretty careful not to attract attention. So finding any evidence that compromises him will be very helpful to the police investigation and to my own inquiry. And then we have Edward Thurber, my editor-in-chief at the New York Gazette, a newspaper he runs with rigor and shrewdness. Despite his inquisitorial air and sometimes overly affected manners, he loves art and is the only friend I have left from my old life in Boston. He believed in my potential as an artist and offered me a new job at the paper when my family died. And then we have Colin, the first and only friend I made in New York. I saved his life during a raid where I was supposed to be just a silent spectator, and we have been close ever since. We also work together on a professional level. He passes me the occasional tip about police cases, and I do the same for the paper's investigations. But he is always afraid that his superiors might find out, so he is obsessed with discretion. Alright, and we also have clues. Of course, we have the doll, which we just found right there. It has probably only been placed there for a short time. Some cars still seem to be in good condition, too good to be found in a junkyard. It looks like someone has been burning trash here. I can't reach the bottom of the barrel. If only I could. Well, I've had my fair share of exercise for today. Now let's see what we have here. And as you can see, he's literally pushed the barrel over. So let's see what's fallen out. Burnt fabric. Looks like clothes. Did they burn them to keep warm? No, it's winter, but it's not that cold. There must be something underneath. Digging through the charred garbage really raises expectations for what a wonderful day this is turning out to be. Yes, apparently he's very sarcastic, isn't he? Alright. The bolt on the door is completely devoured by rust. I've got to find out what they're hiding inside. Okay, so, well, try to break it with your bare hands. That doesn't seem like a particularly smart thing to do. So I think we're going to kick the door. If you don't know this, kicking a door by its lock is the best way to open it up. So if you kick it right next to where the key should go in, that's usually the best course of action if you're going to try to breach a door. Let's see if he actually does that. No way. The cops make it look so easy. I need to find something heavy enough to help me break the bolt. Alright, something heavy enough. Well, there's a rock right here. Well, it's a big stone. I don't think it stands much of a chance against a rifle, but it's certainly better than my bare knuckles. And there we go. We can now use the stone on the little lock here. Use the large stone. It takes just the right blow. Perfect. Definitely put to better use here than on Mahoney's head. And less illegal. And now we're inside. I would say these plates aren't exactly here for collecting. I have what I need to close this damn case. Alright, do we really? I'm a bit worried about this. I wonder if this is Mahoney's private stash or if he's reselling bottles at a premium. They're full of gasoline. Someone's willing to commit arson just to sweep it all under the rug. A wagon wheel. Who knows if they paint horses too? A butcher's cleaver. Who knows what that poor ladder did to Mahoney to deserve this? And indeed, it's not as dusty as all the other junk around here. It's probably been used recently. I could have used that outside. Yes, indeed. We probably could have, couldn't we? Alright, so there doesn't seem to be anything else here. So we can close that. And as you can see, we have now apparently completed what we needed to. And we found burnt clothes. I'm actually not sure. Is there anything else? No. It doesn't seem like there's anything else to do here. There might be some detail I've missed. I'd better have another look. Alright, let's actually stay here. Let me just make sure that I'm not missing anything, because you never know with these kinds of games. I want to make sure that we're all fine. Did I miss anything? I don't think so, actually. Because... no, wait a minute. There's something down here. Ah, hello. The dirt is loose here. Someone buried something. Some baby shoes? I have a bad feeling there is more to this place than just a stolen car operation. Alright, so we literally found buried shoes. I'm assuming they're killing children. It feels to me like they are killing children at this point, because it would be a very poignant and a rather tragic plot point if the main character, because obviously he's lost his family, he's lost his daughter, would have to face a case that has to do with child killers. I think that would be very tragic indeed, but very poignant from a storytelling perspective. So who knows? I don't think there's anything else here. There we go. All right. So he does actually give you a small tip if there's something else that we've missed. So that's very nice. Anyway, let's go. As you make your way through the brushwood, a sudden noise catches your attention. A heavy, grating squeak that lasts no more than a second. The sound came from the house, you're sure of it. Is someone inside? Could the information you received have been off? You can feel the adrenaline pumping through your veins, and your investigative instincts kicking in. This could be the perfect chance to catch John Mahoney or one of his boys red-handed, though it's a gamble, and one that could end with a gun pointed at your head. It's certainly a more enticing prospect than returning to the newsroom with nothing more than a stack of counterfeit license plates. You strain your ears for any other sound, but an eerie silence shrouds the junkyard and the shack. Guided by your need to know, you cautiously approach the decaying structure. Well, we're obviously not going to try to enter through the door. I think that would be probably one of the stupidest things we could do, unless we already know that the place is empty. So we're just going to peek through the window instead. You circle the house in search of a window that could offer a vantage point. It might be harder to see anything, but at least you'll be safer that way. Some of the windows are obstructed by peeling shutters, and others reveal vacant rooms. In one room, you catch a glimpse of a moldy sofa and a rickety table with some trash on it, but nothing more. At last, you discover a small window at the rear, its glass cracked, but clear enough to afford you a glimpse inside. On the other side of the glass, you see a small room filled with piles of junk. The first thing you notice, illuminated by the only beam of light that enters the room, is a set of overalls, crumpled and discarded on the floor. Your eyes follow the streak of light as it sweeps across the wooden floor until it meets the silhouette of a child. You blink and sharpen your focus, stunned by the surreal sight you behold through the encrusted glass, yet the image remains unaltered, the child enshrouded in the deep shadows of the shack. Your first instinct is to make sure the child is all right, but your eyes can't help but give the lie to everything you're trying to tell yourself. The child is completely naked, curled up in an unnatural position, and there is blood. Lot of blood. Your eyes go wide, and you back away for a moment. What kind of place did Therma send you to? It was just supposed to be the hideout of a car thief, not this nightmare. While you're still grappling with the unsettling image of the child huddled in the crimson puddle, the room's door creaks open, drawing your attention to the shadowed figure stepping through the doorway. It's approximately the size of a man, yet any comparison to a human ends there. Its skin is pallid and wrinkled, resembling cloth soaked in water for far too long, crinkled layers of skin piled upon one another, grotesquely dangling in small, spongy peaks. A peculiar rhythmic sound draws your attention to the creature's lower extremities, which are slender and gaunt, culminating in the hooves of a horse. In its hands, needle-like, razor-sharp claws, and where a face should be, a circular maw bristling with fangs, glistening with viscous slime. You cannot comprehend what you see. Perhaps you're going mad, or perhaps the stress of recent times is playing tricks on you. As you continue to grapple with the unfathomable, you watch the creature lunge at its lifeless victim and begin to ravage the pitiful remains of the child with ravenous frenzy. But then the creature suddenly freezes, sniffing the air for a moment. With exasperating slowness, it turns its snout towards the window and swallows a piece of meat with a disgusting twitch of its round jaw. The creature advances with a slow, measured gait toward the window, bringing that wrinkled clot of blood and skin closer to your face. It has no eyes, and yet you can feel it staring straight at you. Your body reacts all at once on pure instinct, while your mind is still trapped in the horror you have just witnessed. You bolt off the porch and break into a run with no intention of looking back, barely holding back a scream at the top of your lungs. It blends with the sound of shattering glass and a cry that ties the beast at your heels to no creature of the animal kingdom. Your muscles move on their own, guiding you to your parked car. You drop into the driver's seat and fumble with the key in your sweaty, trembling hands. Your vision is so blurred that it takes a couple of attempts before you manage it, each one leaving you more breathless, all the while dreading that the creature might lunge at the car. On the third frantic try, the keys find their place and the engine roars to life, a sound so damn comforting in that moment. You wrench the car into a dangerous U-turn, the tires screaming, as you picture the creature bounding after you in great leaps, straining to close the last few yards between its enormous claws and your car. You don't wait for the full scene to reveal itself. Your foot slams down on the accelerator, and you can almost hear the creature's jaws snapping shut on empty air as your reliable car surges away from Riker Avenue. Only a few miles away from the house in the junkyard, your breathing gradually returns to normal. Your heart is finally slowing down, and it's only now that you realize you may well have just come close to a heart attack. You made it out alive, which is the most important thing, but you can't shake the image of what you witnessed, and probably never will. You grip the steering wheel with your bloodless hands, huffing now and then, in an effort to ease the tension that still grips you. Yet it proves futile. Your shirt is soaked with sweat, and still you're racked with cold shivers as if you were running a fever. The first time you're able to draw a deep breath is when the rain unleashes its deluge upon the car windows with the intensity of an unseasonable summer downpour. In that moment, you glimpse the island of Manhattan in the distance, like an impressionist painting, stippled by the storm. It appears so reassuring with its lights piercing through the enveloping darkness. Every now and then, you find yourself instinctively glancing at the rear-view mirror, gripped by the fear that the creature might be tailing you. You're fully aware of the irrationality of this fear, but your mind is still reeling from the shock of what you've witnessed. There's no such thing as monsters, you remind yourself, except in works of fiction and in the minds of the superstitious and the deranged. But what you saw was no costume. It looked far too realistic. And the blood, all that blood, that too, like the child's lifeless body, seems so damn real. You don't know if the images flickering before your eyes are the ones you truly witnessed, or if they're just the product of your troubled mind. Amidst this tumult of emotions, what haunts you most is that you did nothing for the child. Was he truly already dead, or might there have been a chance to save him? Could you have torn him from the monster's clutches? Would it have been worth facing that creature, even to die a hero? You have no answers, and a lump forms in your throat, leaving just one thought in its wake. You left a child to the cruelest of fates once more. You cross the bridge leading to Manhattan Island, and you can't help but admire the grandeur of the towering skyscrapers that had already greeted you from afar. The glow of the great city helps you drive off the tormenting visions of the hovel as you move into the dizzying streets of New York. There's a certain solace in that realization. There are no monsters here, only busy men, most likely fathers, eager to return to their wives and children. And thus your thoughts circle back to the naked figure of the child. You pull over to a quiet spot on the side of the road and rest your forehead on the steering wheel. You take a few deep breaths and try to regain full control of your body. How the hell is that even possible? You're tempted to ask yourself what you did to deserve this harrowing experience, but far too many plausible answers clamor in your mind. The weight of it all seizes your throat in a suffocating hold, causing your eyes to well up with tears. You can't bear this burden on your own. You may not have an extensive network in Manhattan, but you have a handful of trusted friends. You need to confide in someone before your mind unravels, pushing you over the edge into madness. And so, we can go to Thurber, or we can go to Colin. That's interesting. I'm actually not sure what we should go for here. I think we'll go to Thurber. Thurber, your editor-in-chief, is still in the newsroom. Talking to someone like him, so straightforward and rational, might help you make sense of what you've just witnessed. We can select Colin as well to see what he would say. This is the police station where Colin Wright, your friend and informant, works. He would certainly listen to your story, but would he believe it? Well, that's the question, isn't it? Shall we go with Colin? My first instinct was to go to Thurber, but I'm going to go with Colin. Act 1. City of Secrets and Shadows. Night has fallen, yet Fifth Avenue is as busy as ever. You pass by the police headquarters where your informant, Colin Wright, is stationed. From the looks of it, there doesn't seem to be much going on inside. You find a nearby parking lot, lean back in your seat, and ponder your next steps. Colin is not just the person who discreetly feeds you confidential information from inside the police force. He's also the best friend you've made since coming to New York. After all, you saved his life, or at the very least took a serious hit for him, and he hasn't forgotten that. There's trust there, and you know he'd hear your story out to the end without batting an eye. As you struggle to find the right words, you notice a police officer sticking a flyer to a lamppost. The rain temporarily subsides, and you can make out a small figure on the paper. Your heart leaps again, dark sense of dread forcing its way through your mind. You wait until the officer has moved away before opening the door and stepping outside, your body protesting loudly from the accumulated strain. You look at the flyer for a long time and finally breathe a sigh of relief. It's a report of a missing child, but the one pictured looks very small, probably 1 or 2 years old at most. It can't be the same one you saw being torn apart by the monster. But as soon as you start reading the words printed on the paper, your eyes widen. Among the various details listed about the child on the flyer, one particular piece of information stands out. His age. He's 4 years old. The photograph is plainly old, so the child would surely be bigger by now. The thought settles heavily on you as you try to reconcile the features of that helpless, bloodied little body left in a pool of blood with the cheerful drawing of the child on the flyer. At the bottom of the flyer, you see the family's address. At the time of his disappearance, the kid was wearing a blue suit and black trousers with no coat or hat. The only distinguishing feature mentioned is a small scar on his lip. You try to convince yourself that it's just a coincidence. After all, plenty of children go missing every day in New York. The children of illegal immigrants, kids abandoned by their own mothers, or unwitting victims of some score settling. Besides, this child was from Brooklyn, far from the dilapidated shack on Riker Avenue. Yet, despite your best efforts, you can't get rid of the nagging suspicion that this is more than just a random occurrence. You look at the entrance to the station and study it for a moment. You and Colin have been exchanging information under the table for almost a year now, and you have your rituals, your favorite place to chat, away from the prying eyes of his colleagues. But this is an emergency. You can't wait until your next meeting. Yet you also know that if his superiors found out about your little arrangement, your friend would most likely lose his job, if not worse. You also have no idea whether he's on duty tonight. Stepping inside, you're met with a wave of hot, stagnant air and a blur of uniformed bodies rushing in every direction. The room buzzes with overlapping voices, each one straining to be heard through the constant ringing of telephone. Now you have to decide what to do. Filing a complaint the regular way with the first available policeman wouldn't risk exposing your relationship with Colin. No matter how upset you are, this is still infanticide. On the other hand, you've seen something you can't digest, and Colin may be the only one who wouldn't dismiss you as crazy. You could try to find him among the officers and pretend to bump into him by chance, playing it off as naturally as possible. You've never tried your hand at acting. We're going to go after Colin, of course. As you walk, you keep an eye on the men in uniform passing by, hoping to spot Colin. There seems to be no sign of your friend, however, and the chaos around you feels like a claustrophobic maze with no way out. Then, as if from some unknown corner of purgatory, you see your friend emerge from the crowd. Colin strides toward you, weaving past his colleagues with effortless skill, all the while keeping a steady, hard gaze fixed on you. He greets you very formally, shakes your hand, and gives you a very insincere smile. "Ah, it's you. Please follow me. I will take your complaint, as we agreed yesterday." He puts a hand on your shoulder to lead you to his desk, squeezing a little harder than you would have expected, making you jump. "Are you out of your mind?" He growls in a low voice, so that only you can hear him in the midst of that throng. Within moments, you reached your destination, a cubicle overflowing with paperwork, files, and an absurd number of notes scattered across one of the tables near the entrance of the police station. "Give me all the details." A man sits at his desk, maintaining a formal tone, even though no one is paying attention. You find yourself muttering softly, not quite sure what to say. Despite all the time you spend preparing your speech, the words just don't come out. Something grips your throat and leaves you gasping for air. You finally manage to muster a few words. "I saw something terrible. I think a child was killed." Colin's eyes widen for a moment before he returns to staring at the complaint form to be filled in. The weight of what you just said hits you like a speeding car. It is as if you have just made real what you saw in the house on Riker Avenue. It wasn't real before, just an image burned into your mind. Now it feels like the fire is actually burning. "So, as you said, this friend of yours refuses to return the books you lent him some time ago." "I see. In fact, it amounts to theft." With this false statement, Colin rescues you from the abyss created by your words in a tone loud enough to discourage any sharp-eared officer. On the other hand, no one cares much about skirmishes between old friends, do they? You nod, a little bewildered, while he jots down your information with the mechanical precision of someone who does this all day. "Did you park nearby?" He suddenly mumbles, so quiet you can barely hear him. You nod again and tell him where you parked your car. "Give me 15 minutes and I'll join you." He says it almost in a whisper, before shifting back into a formal tone laced with subtle irritation, as if he were a weary officer forced to put up with yet another whiner, fed up with endless petty complaints. "Well, we'll see what we can do. Goodbye." With a handshake, you walk out of the station and quickly make your way to your car. Colin opens the door of your car and gets into the passenger seat. You couldn't help noticing how cautious he was about this simple action, almost as if he expected to be spied on. Sometimes you think he's exaggerating a bit, but maybe it just comes with the job. Without a word, he motions for you to get going. You start the car, then merge into Manhattan's evening traffic under a downpour that shows no signs of letting up. The two of you remain silent for a while. You've been in this situation before, where your friend waits until he is far enough away from his place of work to be comfortable with the conversation. You sigh, a little annoyed. You've been driving in circles for a while now, and the station is well behind you. "You said you saw a child killed. Tell me everything." His eyes are full of anticipation, and you can guess why. Colin is a family man with 3 kids, so it's no surprise the news seems to hit him on a personal level. Now that you think about it, one of the things his superiors often accuse him of is getting too emotionally involved in his cases. Not that you think it's a bad thing, so you take a deep, quiet breath, and we can then choose what we want to say. Do we want to say remember the junkyard on Riker Avenue? Or do we want to say I have a hunch it was William Gaffney? Or do we want to say I saw him being devoured by a monster? I think we'll say remember the junkyard on Riker Avenue. He nods. He knows exactly what it's about. He was the one who passed along the information about this place to begin with. I was there today. I saw a child in the shack. I don't know if he was dead or alive, but he was in bad shape. Very bad. There was blood everywhere. God, only I could get that scene out of my head. Colin stays silent for a long moment, watching your trembling hands on the wheel. You wouldn't know it at first glance, but he's a very tactful man, and quite empathetic too. He's shown you that many times. I can only imagine how horrific it must have been to see all that. We have John Mahoney's file, but I must admit I never thought he could be such a monster. Like I said, I know for a fact that he's out of town. He takes another long pause, pinching the bridge of his nose, as if trying to gather his thoughts on what he's just heard. I don't know. It must have been a school settling. They must have killed that little boy to get back at someone. If only we had some proof. I've got it. I found fake plates in the shed next to the house. That should be enough to arrest him. But that's not all, Colin. There's more. I'm afraid the child I saw was William Gaffney. The policeman wrinkles his nose and frowns, one of his usual concerned expressions. The whole of Brooklyn is up in arms over his disappearance. Are you sure you didn't let yourself get carried away? I mean, the picture on the flyer is old, and I might add, useless. And besides, Queens isn't exactly round the corner. A lot of kids go missing. I know what you're going to say. I've thought about it too. But the one I saw die in that house was the same age, and the timing coincided. He sighs and shakes his head. You can see that he wants you to keep cool and think about it, to show you that you're making a mistake. But you know what you saw, and you'll never be able to forget it. I found items matching Gaffney's on Riker Avenue. Colin looks at you again, and this time you notice a shadow of apprehension and understanding on his face that wasn't there before. He's a policeman, and clearly he needs something concrete to give your testimony a chance. After all, he spent years collecting useless complaints and the tall tales of compulsive liars week after week. He looks at you, waiting for further explanations. There was a barrel near the shed with burnt material inside. I found some scraps of blue and grey fabric, and from what I read, those were the colours Gaffney was wearing when he disappeared. I got the impression it had been done to get rid of some of the evidence. I understand, but it could have been someone else's clothes, or a curtain, or... There's more. I also found a pair of small shoes buried nearby. I'm no expert, but I think they'd fit a 4-year-old. Colin doesn't say anything this time, clearly analyzing everything you're telling him. Or you're telling him, even. I mean, I appreciate your rationality, my friend, but all this in the same spot where a child the same age as the one missing was killed, so soon after? The policeman sighs and gazes out the window for a moment, lost in thought, as if trying to count the raindrops against the glass. But in his eyes, you catch that glimmer of excitement you've come to know so well. He thinks he has a real case on his hands. You're right. It's too strange. Colin frowns and mutters something, thoughtful. William Gaffney. You say nothing, but you notice that your friend is following the same reasoning you did. You know he's still not convinced. In fact, he's not convinced at all. But he's seriously giving you the benefit of the doubt, which is what you would expect him to do. Alright, what do you say we head back? Mahoney must still be out of town. Let's see what we can find out about the truth of this story. The thought of going to Riker Avenue so soon after meeting the monster sends a chill down your spine, and your stomach clenches. Your first reaction would be to snap a sharp "no," or ask Colin to call for reinforcements. But all you can do is nod and turn to head back to that god-forsaken place. Probably the right thing to do, also the most dangerous. On the last stretch of road, Colin advises you to turn off your headlights, just in case, and you obey. You park almost mechanically in the same spot as before, not without a certain unease. It seems as if you are retracing your own steps again, and maybe this time, the monster will actually catch up to you. You shake your head as you turn off the engine and look at Colin, trying to take comfort in his presence. At least this time you're not alone, and your companion has 6 shots in the chamber. You both get out of the car, now that the rain has finally stopped, and move with extreme caution. Everything is dark around you, but the cloudy sky provides enough light for you to move between the car racks without stumbling. Colin looks at the dilapidated house, shrouded in darkness, and listens. You do the same, but hear nothing from inside. But you can't shake the fear that the creature is hiding somewhere, and your heart beats wildly as you approach the house. Just then, your friend pulls out a flashlight. The beam of light pierces the darkness and blinds you for a moment. You flinch and whisper to Colin under your breath, afraid someone might hear you. "I didn't realize you brought that thing with you." "Let's just say it stayed with me after the rounds. You wanted me to set fire to a piece of wood. I can't see a thing around here, and I'm pretty sure nobody's home. Let's go in, but stay alert." You approach the building, and he lights up the ground in front of you. The porch creaks slightly as you step onto it to face the entrance to the house, and at the slightest touch of the policeman's hand, the door opens in front of you. A narrow hallway opens up before you, lit only by the flashlight. Surprisingly, the entrance is fairly clean, and the walls appear to be freshly painted in white paint. Suddenly, the old floor creaks beneath your feet, followed by Colin's muted cursing, though there are no sounds to indicate that anyone else could be listening. Colin is quite scrupulous in searching from room to room, and you stand beside him, almost clinging like a kid to his mother's skirt. As much as you already know perfectly well what you will find in those rooms, you shudder at the thought of what might lurk in the last one. The light from the flashlight brings the collapsed inner staircase into focus, and your friend lingers for a moment. "You can't get through here. Maybe we can try the railing outside when we come out." You lose yourself in the torn-up steps, imagining the beast you saw a few rooms away effortlessly leaping the whole flight to the floor above. In the process, you take your eyes off your feet and stumble awkwardly over something on the floor. You hiss a curse as you bend down to pick up the object that nearly knocked you to the floor. A book. Colin, who was lighting up the first room on the right, immediately turns and points his flashlight at you. Beam of light immediately reveals the simple cross stamped on the cover, and a quick glance at the first few pages confirms your suspicion. A Bible? What the hell is it doing in the middle of the hallway? "What the hell are you doing? Didn't you see outside? This place is worse than a dump. Watch your step and follow me." "Wait, Colin, there's something strange about this book. There's stains and—" Colin snatches the book from your hands, then opens it and shines his flashlight on it. Both immediately notice that some of the pages are marked in several places by various pencil notes. Colin then gasps as he rubs his fingers over what appears to be a hole in the pages. "Jesus Christ!" Without adding anything, the detective shines his flashlight away from the Bible, stuffs the book into his uniform pocket, and continues studying the scene. You, however, resolve to ask him if you can take a look at it once you're back at the car. You've never seen him react this way before, and you're not about to let this clue vanish into a case file, lost forever. You enter the narrow hallway, which is lined with just a few doors. In the room on the left, there is just a moldy sofa and a shabby coffee table, remnants of a time when the house was actually lived in. The first room on the right, on the other hand, opens onto an empty space with just one chair in the corner. At last, you reach the final room, already cramped in itself, made worse by the clutter of junk piled one on top of another. Without saying a word, You instinctively point to the spot where you remember seeing the child's motionless body, imagining that you will find its remains. But when the light shines on the ground, there are no shreds of flesh or severed limbs to be found. In a way, you feel relieved, but you can already imagine Colin starting to rant about how you made it all up. Instead, the policeman remains silent and crouches down to the ground. There's something here. Traces of blood. Do you believe me now? He sighs, not quite knowing what to say. The situation is objectively strange, but again, you put yourself in his shoes and realize that he's going to need something more concrete. The blood doesn't even look old, but the first thing that comes to mind is that maybe this was a settling of scores. Maybe. Isn't it still enough to get Mahoney arrested? He must know something about it. Colin nods and seems quite convinced. You know what? Gaffney or not, I've been on this case far too long. So yes, I'll make the most of that blood and squeeze Mahoney as fast as I can. Otherwise I might see my daughter married before that jerk ends up in jail. At this point I'm having dreams about those stolen cars at night. So you leave the shack, much to your relief. It's about to rain again, but your friend hasn't forgotten about the upper floor. You watch as, with an agility you didn't expect, he plants his feet on the railing and pulls himself up onto the roof. He points his flashlight at you and tells you to wait there. You see the beam move into the rooms you haven't been in. You approach the porch, resting a hand on one of the wooden pillars supporting the sloping roof. Only after a few moments do you realize that you're holding your breath, waiting to hear something, anything, from up there. Your mind conjures up horrifying scenarios of your friend's harrowing screams breaking the silence of the night, but you banish those visions and cling even tighter to the column. To take your mind off the anxiety, you try to think through your next move. First, the Bible, and second, Mahoney. All you have to do is wait for the police to arrest him. After a few minutes, you hear Colin descend with a thud and approach calmly, and you breathe a sigh of relief. Nothing. I'm a bit disappointed, but then again, it doesn't look like anyone's been up there for ages. The dust was so thick it felt like London in the fog. Everything was just grey. You get into the car and drive back to Manhattan, but the thought of the Bible continues to haunt you. You can't help but stare at it as Colin holds it in his lap, one hand resting on the cover. Then you work up the courage to ask what you've been wanting to ask for so long. Do you mind if I take it? I'd like to have a look at it. Then I'll give it back to you before you make the arrest. You don't need it to nail Mahoney, do you? Colin snorts, then turns the object back over in his hand. All right, keep it. Honestly, it's more important to have found those bloodstains and, well, as usual, your instinct was right. Better than most of my officers. Let's do this the usual way. If you find out anything interesting, let me know, and I'll let you know when I get back to Riker Avenue. That way, you'll get it back to me sooner. Just in case. You're home at last. It hardly seems real that you've made it back to your apartment after such an insane and dangerous day. And before we continue, I personally would like to look at the Bible. A black-covered Bible found on Riker Avenue. It looks quite worn, so I imagine it is read often. To be honest, I've never met anyone who reads the Bible a lot, but I do know that the Book of Numbers is a particularly good remedy for insomnia. Okay, so the question remains, what did they see inside the Bible? Because I would like to know. I would like to know that. Okay, we'll see what happens. Your one-bedroom apartment is far from luxurious, and you've never really felt like it belonged to you. You've lived there for a few years now, but it still feels temporary. at least until you can go back to Boston or find a new job and a new life somewhere else. You have no idea. This thought grips you every time you walk inside, but you can find no peace from this torment. You never even made much of an effort to furnish it. The only hints of you are the art books carefully arranged on the wall shelf and a small painting of you with Margaret hanging in the bedroom. That, too, does nothing but weigh on your heart. You'll never get used to how much your life has changed in so little time and how much pain it has caused you. Maybe you should just throw away that painting, which you'd made with so much love, but you simply can't. With an automatic, almost ritualistic gesture, you fill a glass of water left on the sink and pour it into the vase of daisies you keep on your desk during the day. You watch the flowers slowly wilting, their lovely white petals beginning to take on little brown spots that would foretell their withering. You don't have time to lose yourself in the melancholy that grips your heart each time you come home, because as soon as you set your things down on the desk, you feel something brush against your legs, making you start. With everything that has happened, you'd almost forgotten the one comforting thing in this house. Salem, your black cat, is looking at you with his one eye as he continues to rub against your legs and meow persistently. You've been gone too long, and now he's really hungry. He must not have found any mice or birds in the street today. You, on the other hand, have no appetite, so you open a can of meat and divide it in half, putting one half in the bowl and the other half on a slice of bread. It's not unusual for you to eat this way, given that time is always short and your salary mostly goes toward the rent. As you chew, you watch as Salem swallows the last bite, glances at the window you always leave half open for him, and then decides he would rather be with you than go out. He then jumps onto your lap and starts kneading, while the sound of his purring spreads through the air. And we're going to pet his head. You pet his head with your fingertips, and at once he half closes his eyes, a funny, blissful look on his face. He even lifts his muzzle a little, as if to ask you to keep going forever. There's a mix of dust, dirt, and what appears to be bits of green paint on your fingers. You sigh and look at him again. Look how dirty you are. Where did you get off to today? Like all male cats, Salem is a globetrotter and can't help but roam around most days, but he always comes home. He's incredibly loyal to you and never fails to show his affection. With something in your stomach and the cat on your lap, you finally look at the book full of notes you managed to bring home from Riker Avenue. It looks like an ordinary Bible, the cheap kind you can find in homes and hotel rooms. The heading on the first page reads, Authorized Version, indicating that the owner is a member of the Episcopalian denomination. Leaving it on the table, you begin to leaf through it. Immediately, Salem jumps off your legs and stands over the book, preventing you from reading and staring at you with his one eye. He wears a look somewhere between curiosity and apprehension that you can't quite explain. Postpone reading. You can't help but smile. It's almost as if your cat is telling you tonight isn't the time to get into anything else. You didn't think you were hungry, and yet you devoured that miserable dinner, and now you don't feel sleepy either, but maybe it really is time to go to bed, though. You're pretty sure that the moment your head hits the pillow, all that built-up fatigue will fall on you like a leaden blanket. You feel truly drained after a day like this. The third-hand gramophone you managed to pick up for next to nothing languishes on a side table, staring at you as if begging you to unwind to its music. But no, you don't have the strength to do anything but collapse onto your bed. As you approach the bed, you feel the blood pounding in your temples like a drum. and you barely manage to grab the sheets and pull them over you. You probably have a fever. That wouldn't be surprising, considering what you've been through. Could all this really have been the result of an illness? What if it was a delusion? Or your head hurts too much? Before you close your eyes, you take one last look at the painting of you and Margaret, and your breathing becomes even heavier. You sink your head into the pillow and try to let go of all these thoughts, and finally find some peace in sleep. The warmth of the spring sun caresses your face as the grass brushes against your fingertips, tickling you pleasantly. You don't know what's taking Margaret so long. In fact, you can't even remember what she's doing. But deep down, you're glad to have some time alone with Daisy. Then again, it might be time to go and see where she's wandered off to. You drag yourself up and wander through the garden, framed by flourishing shrubs, while the stern, heroic gazes of classical statues seem to pass silent judgment on your languid pace, as if they'd never indulged in the comfort of a quiet afternoon with loved one. The whole place is filled with the sweet scent of roses, lilacs, and honeysuckle. Not that you're a botanical expert, but Margaret has always had a green thumb, which has served you well in painting some of your favorite landscapes. After passing the statue of a young Bacchus, pompous in his umpteenth celebration of alcohol and carnal pleasure, you find your little Daisy not far from an armless, ivy-covered Venus. She seems to be picking flowers, so you stop to watch her, not daring to disturb a moment of serenity. Then the little girl's figure is overshadowed by a vaguely human silhouette, whose presence blocks the warm rays of human, or shall we say, afternoon light. The little girl doesn't seem to notice, even though the atmosphere suddenly becomes colder. You try to reach out and call for Daisy. The muscles of your mouth twitch in vain, as if your lips had been sewn together with some strange, viscous thread of an indistinguishable taste. Before your frightened eye, a whitish glimmer slips past your vision, a large, white silhouette standing between you and your little girl. In the blink of an eye, your daughter and the figure disappear into thin air. The splendid garden has fallen into ruin. Weeds have overrun every corner, devouring all they can with wild, chaotic green tendrils, a creeping reconquest that feels anything but natural. Vines twist into impossible knots, spiraling upward in tight coils that seem to reach for the edge of the sky. The only thing that matters is that Daisy has disappeared. You begin to run desperately in one direction, not even sure if it's the right one, or even if there are any directions in this meaningless place. Your heart pounding and your legs shaking to try to figure out where your daughter has ended up in this hellscape of vegetation. Rain begins to drench your face, the sickening smell of rotting flesh reaching you as you push aside another bramble, scratching your hands painlessly to reveal a familiar hovel in the middle of the woods. Riker Avenue. You make a dash for it, but just before you reach the porch, the steps give way under your weight and you crash to the ground with a thud. And what your eyes see, now that your face is pressed against the crumbling wooden floor, is a disjointed jumble of hoof prints stamped in the mud, as if a donkey or a horse had decided to bolt and turn on itself in that spot. You feel something grab hold of your legs. You scream and gasp as tendrils begin to wrap around your body, almost sensing the intruder in you. You lift your eyes back toward the hovel, desperately searching for something to hold on to, but instead, they meet a small figure watching you just inches away. William Gaffney. You have no idea how you know, The child is much older than the one you saw portrayed a few hours ago, but you know it's him. In fact, he looks exactly like the one you saw right there at Riker Avenue, just before his miserable end. The little one just watches as the brambles tighten around your muscles and bones, leaving you gasping. Then he leans forward, bending his knees and reaching out one arm so that his finger can just barely press against your nose. "Got you." He says this in a cheerful tone just before a third presence appears behind him. You recognize it as the creature that devoured the child, his murderer, the whitish beast with the huge, toothed mouth. You want to warn the poor child of the tragic fate that awaits him, but the creeping vegetation has already taken hold of your face, tightening around your mouth to keep you from speaking or screaming. The creature rests its hooked paws on Billy's tiny shoulders and lifts him without any effort. "Now the boogeyman has got me." As this happens, you see the monster's figure shimmer like a reflection on water, and its features change. The claws become fingers, the rows of fangs dull until it looks like a set of human teeth. The hooves grow a covering of skin in which 4 clefts open, becoming the hollows of the big toe and the others. Just as his face is about to shed its hideous features and take on those of a normal human being, a large pulsating root crawls in front of your eyes, pressing with such force that your eyes nearly shoot back into your skull. Darkness takes hold of you, but sounds continue to reach your ears. Something hard snapping with shocking ease, the sound of entrails being processed by a listless butcher, and a single sentence. "Now it's your turn to try to get him." And indeed, that was a bad dream, as you can see from the achievement there. And that is going to be it for this episode. If you would like to check out the game, and I'd highly recommend it, is very, very fun, a very extremely well written, and I'm very impressed. I would like to see actually what happens, but I think this is probably going to be the only episode I make, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe if you want to see more, you want to hear more, then by all means let me know. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.